If you're struggling to get your fall colors to look out of camera, how they look in person, this video is for you as we work our way through fall here. And I continue to post more photos of fall scenes and landscapes. I keep getting the same question and comment over and over. How do you get your colors to look like that? Because I see these same scenes with my eyes, but my photos don't ever look like that. Why does it never look as good coming out of my camera as the photos that you're posting? So today I'm gonna show you absolutely everything. We're gonna go over the beginner steps first, just the easiest way to do this to make your colors pop. And then we're gonna get into some very advanced stuff in the second half of this video. But by the end of this video, you will be able to absolutely crush your fall colors. Now, I realize that there is going to be some negative comments on this video of people thinking that I over-process these photos, that it's not realistic enough, whatever. I don't give a shit. I'm not here to make photos for you. I'm making photos for me. If you don't want to process them this intently, then all these same tricks still apply. You just do less of it. Now, one of the most important things is that you shoot in RAW. Even your cell phone will do this. My iPhone shoots in RAW, but you have to shoot your photos in RAW. RAW means that you're getting the actual sensor data off of the camera. It's not processed yet whatsoever. And when you shoot in RAW, you then have to edit in a software like Lightroom. Lightroom is what I use. You can use whatever. All these principles will apply to any editor. So when you're shooting in RAW, this means you can manipulate the photo a lot harder before it starts to fall apart. And that's gonna be one of the secrets. Okay, let's jump into Lightroom and let me show you the basics of this, the beginner level of this that anyone can do whatsoever. So for the beginner level, this is going to be the photo that I'm using. This is after editing, and if we go before, this is what the photo looked like out of camera. Now, this is not what the photo looked like in person. I was obviously standing here, and it looked much closer to this. So we're just going to go over to another raw image here. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to brighten the image up kind of substantially, somewhere around there, but we're gonna bring the highlights down a little bit. And the very first thing that we're gonna do is go down to our color grading here, and we're gonna select highlights. We're gonna select some nice oranges here, and we're gonna start to push it up. Now you can see right out of the gate, watch these oranges pop as soon as I just start color grading these oranges up. Like, that's already a significant difference. Then we're gonna do a little bit more of that in the midtones. So we're gonna add a little bit of saturation in the oranges, just a little bit in the midtones, but now the photo is overall looking a little bit too warm. So then we're gonna go to the shadows and we're gonna put some teals or some blues in there to cool that photo off just a little bit. There we go. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here, we're gonna pull the saturation down a little bit, we're gonna push the vibrance up a little bit, and we're gonna go to our yellows and we're gonna push the saturation up a little bit. And we're gonna turn them just a tiny bit orange, and we're gonna push the saturation on our oranges up. And then we also wanna process our greens, because now our greens are looking pretty meh. So let's pull the luminance down in our greens just a little bit and push the saturation up just a little bit. Now there is a before and after. I mean, it was literally that simple. Those colors pop way, way harder and is a lot closer to what I saw in person when I was standing here. Now, the reason this works with the color grading is because in a scene like this, the oranges and the yellows are the brightest colors, the brightest parts of the photo. So when you're color grading and you use your highlights and you push your highlights orange or yellow and you push your midtones orange or yellow, it's much more drastically affecting the colors that you're most worried about right out of the gate. Now, there's some more things that I could do to this photo to make it pop in a simple way. This wouldn't be the end of the edit, but in the beginner sense, if you just want to make your colors pop, this is how you do it. But I think we should move on to the advanced section now, and let me show you how I really dig in and make these colors pop. Let's choose a scene that is difficult, like this one. Now I'm gonna duplicate this photo so that way I can reset these edits. Now this is fairly processed, but it is really close to what I saw with my own eyes. Reset edits. So this is what the photo looked like. Really drab, really boring. Colors are very bland. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna straighten this up. Let's just use auto. Auto did a terrible job. Let's not do that. That looks much better to me. Okay, now we can see the sky is kind of blown out here. The sun is coming from that direction. So let's pull the highlights way down. Let's push the shadows way up just as a starting point and fix our exposure just a little bit. Now we're going to start with the color calibration tab. First of all, this is adjusting the actual color science of the raw data that's coming off your sensor. When we're shooting in RAW, you have all of the data from the sensor, and so we're gonna start with color calibration. Now in this version of Lightroom, you hit these three little buttons here, and you can see show color calibration. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the shadows a little bit magenta, we're gonna push the red primary a little bit magenta, and we're gonna saturate it a little bit. We're gonna push the green a little bit emerald, and we're gonna saturate a little bit, and we're gonna pull the blue a little bit teal, and we're gonna saturate it. And so now this color science, this is the starting point. This is before and this is after already. And you can see how much more accurate these colors are in the leaves. They're already way, way more orange. And we are one big step closer to what it actually looked like in person when I was there. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our color grading, and we're gonna do the same thing that I already showed you. Let's find the highlights here, and we're going to start pushing those much, much more warm. Again, this is much closer to how it looked when I was actually there. We're gonna push the midtones much, much more warm, and then we are going to push the shadows a little cool or a little teal to balance it out, so that way the photo doesn't look too warm, but the colors are better. So there's before, there's after, just with a couple moves. Now this sky is way too blown out for me. This is the first thing that I want to adjust. So we're gonna select a radial gradient. We're gonna just go like this, and we're gonna pull these highlights down and the exposure down, and we're gonna push the shadows up to balance it out a little bit, pull the whites down and the blacks up a little bit, exposure down, and here is without and with, because I don't want people's eye to be drawn to the top like this. Your eye is always drawn to the brightest part of the photo first. That's not what I want people to see. I want people to see these roots, and I want their eye to follow the path into the woods. But we are going to add some dehaze, or take away some dehaze here, and we are going to add some contrast to that section up there. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another radial gradient, and we are going to focus that right here on these roots, and we're going to just bump the highlights of this up. We want to create more contrast here. Let's pull the blacks down a little bit and push the highlights up a little bit. More contrast. We're also going to add some texture right here because I want this to be kind of a focal point. I wish I would have focused more on this or used a deeper focal plane, a smaller aperture. Then we're going to take away some dehaze here. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a brush, and we're going to brush all of this path here. Everywhere where there's orange leaves, we're going to brush it in, make it a little bit smaller, brush it in, make it a little bit smaller, brush it in, and because we want to treat every section here a little bit differently. So now we've got that all brushed in, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to warm it up a little bit, just a little bit more, and now we're getting even closer. But the next thing that I never see people talk about is this point color. So in this tab right here under the color section, you hit this little eyedropper, and now we can go down here and we can select an orange, any orange hue. So we're going to select this one right here, and we are going to saturate it. Now what I like to do is pull the range all the way wide, so that way it's getting as wide of a color space that is around that as possible, all the way to the yellow, all the way to the red. We're going to shift it a little bit more orange, and then we're going to do it again. We're going to find a yellow here, something like that, and we are going to saturate that and pull it down. Now let's look at before and after. So there's the photo before and there's the photo after. We are really starting to get somewhere now. Let's do one more of this like brown right here, and we are going to pull the luminance down a little bit and the saturation up a little bit, like so. So that's looking really good. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select objects here, a new object mask, and we are going to select each one of these roots because I want them to stand out. Now you might think that this is too much, and if it's too much for you, then that is totally fine. One of my favorite landscape photographers is Peter Lick, and one of the things I love about his photos is how perfect absolutely everything looks. It almost looks hyper realistic. It's obviously a photo, it's not CGI, but it is absolutely perfect looking. So we're selecting all of these rocks here. This whole little scene has a bunch of these little elements that are close up, and we want to enhance all of those. So we're selecting all, we're creating a mask to handle all of these tree roots here. Let's get that a little bit further down. There we go. And this one a little bit further down. Oh, and there's a little tree root hiding in there, and a little rock hiding right there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to push the whites of these up. So that way, you see how it's just drawing your attention more to them. We're going to increase the contrast. We're going to add some texture to that. And we're going to add some saturation to that. And see how much more it just makes it pop if I turn it off, on, off, and on, and it just makes them pop. I think we're going to warm them up a little bit because raising the exposure cooled them off just a little bit. All right, that's looking pretty good. The next thing I want to do is kind of keep your eye from being drawn to these sections right here. So we're going to do a couple radial masks, right? One right here, and let's just go ahead and duplicate that mask and then pull it right over here. So now we've got one on each side, because I want your eye to follow the trail up to the sun back here is what I want. And all we're going to do is we're going to pull the exposure down a little bit on that one and a little bit on that one and put them there. And then I'm always bypassing this to make sure I'm continually accomplishing the goal. That's pretty good. We're going to do another radial mask, and we're going to put it right in the center here. We're going to angle this just a little bit so it follows the trail like that, and we're going to just push the highlights up just a little bit so that way it draws your eye right to the center of the photo. Like, we want our eye to follow the path all the way to the center. Let's add some contrast, and let's add a little bit of warmth here, just like that. Now, I'm still not happy with the top of this photo. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to create a linear gradient, and we're going to pull down just like this. And what I want to do is create a little bit of fog, a little bit of haze. So we're going to turn the dehaze up a little bit. We're going to warm it up substantially like that, but we're also going to pull the exposure down. There we go. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, the photo's a little bit too bright, so we're gonna go back into we've done all of this with masks so far, by the way. We've done very, very little work in the main adjustment panel so far. So we're gonna pull our exposure back down, something like that. Let's let our shadows come back down and because I want this kind of dark and moody. And then we're also going to change our curve here. We're gonna pull our shadows up kind of significantly. And then we're going to pull our darks down, push our kind of between our midtones and our highlights up, and pull the highlights down just a little bit. And that is maybe just a little bit too extreme, like that. Let's let our highlights come back up a little bit. There we go. That's looking really good. We're going to add just the tiniest bit of a vignette with the midpoint almost to the center and feathered out like this. Yeah, that's looking great. Now, we haven't even done anything with our greens. So let's go ahead and do the point color on the main tab, not in one of our masks, and let's find a nice dark green here, something like this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna shift it a little bit more emerald. We're gonna pull the luminance down a little bit, but the saturation up a little bit. So we're affecting the greens of the entire image. Now let's get some of this bright green right here, because I really want to, I like when these bright greens just pop really, really hard. We're going to open the range up so it gets a wider spectrum of green, and we're going to push the saturation up a little bit, and we're going to pull it a little bit more emerald, and we're going to pull the luminance down a little bit. Something like that. Okay, now I think that you get the idea. You can push this as far as you'd like to go. This is before and this is after. This is probably more processed than it looked in person. But let me talk to you a little bit about the philosophy of this. I do the same thing in music. So I'm a music producer by trade. I make music. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. That is my full-time job. And when you hear a band live, you have a whole bunch of things influencing your senses. You have how loud the PA is, the kick drum thumping you in the chest. You have the visual of watching the band on stage and their energy is projecting out to you. You have the energy of the crowd surrounding you that is there having a good time. You've maybe had a couple drinks. There's a whole bunch of things that influence your perception of what that band sounds like. And then when we come in the recording studio, in order for that music to be perceived at the same level, with the same emotional impact, with the same quality, to make you perceive that the band is just as good, the music has to be about 50% better sounding, more polished sounding than the band does live, in order for the listener to be perceiving it the same way. When you're just by yourself in your car with the radio kind of half turned down, that music has to be much more polished than the band does live in order to be perceived as the same way. Photos to me are the same thing. When I'm walking down this trail, I feel the crispness of the sunset. The sun's going down. I'm getting exercise. I'm out in nature. I'm smelling the smells. The leaves are crunching under my feet as I'm walking. I'm watching how the light bounces off of everything. I'm seeing these fall colors that are much more vibrant in person than they look raw right out of my camera. And so in a principle, the philosophy of this is, I think this photo needs to be about 50% more impressive and polished looking in the photo than it was in real life, in order for me to perceive it as the same when I'm just scrolling on my phone in my living room or on the toilet and I see a photo. In order for me to be sitting on the toilet and see a photo and have the same impression, the same impact that it did when I was walking down the trail, I've got to turn it up a notch, like 50%. And so from a philosophy point of view, that's how I try to operate. I try to get that same impression, the thing that I felt when I was there. I will push the photo however hard I need to get that feeling again while I'm sitting on the toilet. You may agree or disagree, and that is totally fine. It is totally okay. There is no right and wrong in any of this, because it's all art. It's all our perception of good and what we should do. But this is how I do it. And this is how I get my fall colors to pop. I hope this helped you. If you like this sort of content, don't forget to subscribe. There are links in the description down below for every single piece of gear that I use, all the cameras, all the lenses, all the filters. And if you like this sort of thing, you want more content like this, drop me a comment and let me know. I'm happy to continue doing content just like this. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.